What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Corked Stats here on the Mayo Media Network on YouTube. Your host, Big Johnny Stud, coming to you worldwide from Brooklyn, New York. As always, the Super Bowl is now in the rearview mirror along with the football season, and it's time to look ahead towards the 2022 MLB Fantasy Baseball season. Please make sure that you like this video, hit the subscribe, and make sure that you check out the baseball playlist that we've been working on to have ready for just this time of year. We knew a lot of people, as soon as the Super Bowl would be ending, would be coming on over to baseball. We wanted to make sure that we had you covered. Make sure you check out the Fantasy Baseball Picks and Bets playlist. Man, we have a ton of impactful content, sleeper videos, breakout videos, advanced pitcher breakdowns, rankings, positional rankings, where I take projection systems and chart them against ADP to search for values. Man, make sure you're doing it all. Rate, review, and subscribe to the Corked Stats podcast. Check out the Corked Stats YouTube channel as well. I am bringing it all hot and heavy off the crack of the bat. 115 as always. Enough of that. Let's get down and do more of this. It's the fastest show in MLB absolutely anywhere. Today, the topic of focus will be Twins youngster, 25-year-old Joe Ryan. He came on the scene last year. We didn't see much, but he was very impactful and has fantasy owners just licking their chops. And I didn't really have a very strong feeling on him. There are pitchers that I like going around him. One of those I've covered in Jordan Montgomery. Make sure to check out that video. And that's kind of partly why I do these videos. The guy's getting a lot of hype. He's getting a lot of heat. And I wanted to see what we thought about it. I've developed my own, let's call it, system for player analysis. I like to compartmentalize players and teams into statistical baskets so I don't kind of overreact to any one thing. We'll be taking a look at his surface stats. We'll be looking at discipline, elevation, batted ball quality. We'll be doing some trend and chart work, and then over to projections before we make our own determination what to expect for the next season and maybe where we should be drafting him at all. So without any further ado, let's get down and do the thing. Let's start with the tail of the tape. As always, you see I've got the surface stats up from last year. We didn't get much. 26 and 2/3, the 4.05 ERA. It's that .79 whip and the 30% K that has fantasy drafters everywhere, just ready to get at him. But I want to highlight not only the 4 ERA, not only the small amount of innings, but also that home run rate, 1.35, just a touch worse than average. Let's take a look really quick at last year, what you got. Again, those surface stats are up there. A lot of the earn run indicators still in pretty good shape, better than the 4 that we saw. 3.4 Sierra, 3.4 FIP, 3.7 XFIP, 2.15 deserved ERA. That's a contact related metric. 170 batting average against, all really, really good. 557 OPS, also excellent. 265 X WOBA. So we know the results were very, very good. Some of the other numbers I see jumping off the page, things we'll get to it. One of the highest foul ball rates in the league that will keep you from going deep into games. And he's an extreme fly ball pitcher. 53% of balls hit were in the air. Now that can be good for batting average against what we saw, but can also be bad for home runs, which we also saw. So a lot of the statistics that we saw last year, though a small sample, may be kind of pretending what we'll expect. So I think a lot of this stuff is firmly in place. Ryan had a history of the high strikeout rate, but we got to dig in a little bit deeper. Past performance is not necessarily predictive of the future. So where I like to start, as always, is with the pitch mix. Ryan only throws 4 pitches, but the reason I have it up here was, one, to highlight the extreme use of the fastball, right? Over 60%. Again, we don't want to overreact to the small set, but I do have that trend up. It was pretty consistent. I also have the pitch selection at the bottom down, and there's a reason why. If you look at the sliders thrown, 66 total, all 66 to righties. Changeups, 46 total, 40 of those to lefties. 40 of 43. And for curveballs, 26 of 32. So the point being that Ryan is a 2-pitch pitcher against righties, and a 3-pitch pitcher against lefties. I often refer to this as a targeted approach. And when you kind of look at the results last year, he was excellent against both lefties and righties. However, that's what you come to Corked Stats for. It's for the context. It's for the nuance. We're going to dive in a little bit deeper. Look at the X slug on the fastball at 462 is a bit high with an only 20% whiff rate. Those are all kind of worse than average and not really where we'd want to see the statistics for a fastball being thrown 66% of the time. The slider, excellent, but the changeup, that X slug, which is a contact metrics, is a little bit high. So we get just a bit of an overview of what to expect from lefties and righties. Now I want to dig into that targeted approach just a little bit more. So here you can see these are actually the totals. So what you have for audio listeners is just a heat map for all the pitches. Now these things are not definitive, but they will give us an idea of his attack plan. So the 4-seamer against righties, he uses it up and in. He pairs it with the slider low and away. He only throws 2 pitches against righties. Not necessarily a bad thing, but if he doesn't have one of those pitches, it can be. And of course, righties are going to be the majority of the hitters that you face. So just something that we want to keep an eye out. The fastball, the X slug there against righties has been very good. Righties have had a very hard time with it up and in, only 326 X slug, but the whiff rate still down near 22. Over to lefties, this is where a bit of the output stats maybe don't necessarily match the input stats. So let's take a look at the fastball. 69% of the time against lefties he throws the fastball. It came with a 387 slug. However, it was a 586 expected. That is a tremendous disparity in input and output, and going forward, you can expect a ton of damage from lefties against the fastball, and the whiff rate down at 18. I also mentioned the changeup, which also has a worse than 500 X slug and only a 14% whiff rate. If you add up the 68 use in the fastball and the 19% use in the changeup, you're talking about 88% of pitches thrown to lefties have a better than 500 X slug. So I do not expect the success against lefties to continue, and that's part of why we do the exercises that we do here. We want to be careful using season-long stats and kind of determining pitches are throwaways, secondaries, or tertiaries without understanding that they're only being used to certain handed pitchers. So keep that trouble in mind. Now, because we have the fastball being used at such an elevated level, way over 60%, we've got to get into the shape of it. And I won't beat you down with all the technical parts of it, but this is part of the new understanding of pitch shape, and I truly believe it's the future of pitch analysis. Some of the smartest people and successful at that are using this. I know I've been using it for a couple of years in both fantasy and in my handicapping work. If you're unfamiliar with that, make sure you follow me when we get into betting season. I mean, I've turned out better than 15% return on investments all 3 years in the business. No one is able to do that, which is why handicappers are often talking about their last 10, their last 7, their last month. Well, the big dude uses the big numbers. I'm only interested in large samples, and I am always successful because I'm always working very hard. So let's take a look at vertical break. I don't want people that are looking at the video here, again, I know we have audio-only listeners. I'm going to walk you through how to understand this. You don't really need the lines on the graph. We're not really looking for trend changes here because we had so few games, but the range of activity in the shape is going to be very telling. So we have a vertical break, we have our horizontal break, and then we have the all-important release point, and we're going to walk you through all this stuff. So you can see the vertical break oscillate between 19 and 17 inches. That is all very poor. Very simply put, the reason we don't want a ton of vertical break, right, all pitches move downwards with gravity as they approach it, is the more it moves downward, the steeper that angle is going to be. And an uppercut swing, right, an elevated swing path will meet that attack angle and send it up. That's an issue. So that's why we always want a lessened amount of vertical break. Those are often referred to as rising fastballs. No fastball can rise against gravity, but the less it rises, the less it sinks, I should say, appears to have a rising effect. It's very deceptive. Now let's move over to horizontal break, where you see it oscillate between 10 and 12 inches. Those are all excellent across the board. Having a minimum of 9-inch horizontal break means that Ryan has a very distinct tail on it. I would like to see the vertical break drop a touch, but the reason that he gets away with it, the reason it's been so successful, and the reason he's had at least a past of such pronounced strikeout success is because of the release point. I had to check this out. The average release point, I think, or at least I shouldn't say average, the release point you want to be at or below is 5 3/4 feet, 5.75. There's direct correlations. A lot of smarter people than I have done work with this. When you look at Ryan's vertical release point, it is down near 5. I almost was rubbing my eyes. I couldn't believe it. I had never seen a number that low. And when I went and checked it, it is in fact the lowest in the major. So keep that in mind, and that may be part of the success. That also may be part of the problem. It's why hitters in the past have had such problems with it. Not sure that's going to translate in the major leagues. Now, yes, he put up strikeout numbers, but it was a small cup of coffee, and we saw the expected stats don't necessarily match the output. So looking at this fastball overall, I'm a little worried about the lack of vertical break. I do like the amount of tail, and of course that low release point is good. I'm a bit worried it might not translate because of the velocity. That fastball is coming in the low 90s, where maybe you can get away with that in the minors. Not sure that's going to play in the majors, and now I'm going to kind of walk you through again. I hope I'm not just come across as throwing stats at you. That's not what this is about. I'm trying to help you understand. I'm giving you a bit to nibble on, and then showing you how you use it, right? Working you through how these movements, these metrics in shape, can affect performance. And now really got to get into that velocity. I'm going to bring up the rolling average for velocity again. You come here to Corked Stats, you get all excuse me, all the fancy bells and whistles that you would expect at a high-class organization like the Mayo Media Net. Please make sure you're subscribed here, and looking forward to all the stuff we're going to be bringing you up until and hopefully throughout the baseball season. So on the left, I have Joe Ryan's rolling velocity chart. You could see a distinct drop, and in fact, it actually gets down below the 90s. That fastball really sitting right around 90, right around 91, and on the right you could see the inverse subsequent reaction to expected Wobbegon, which is again a contact related metric. It isolates balls in play specifically, and you could see as his pitch velocity has dropped, the damage done on balls, at least expected damage, going through the roof. Now, I hate to just say pitchers are lucky, but we did already highlight a distinct disparity in slug and X-slug on the fastball, and I think if we ran it back, there'd probably be a lot more damage done against that pitch, particularly against lefties. So I'm really kind of already seeing a few red flags here, especially considering the very small amount of time we see him on the mound in the pros. So I'm starting to think I'm getting away from this again. I don't come into these exercises with any prior, so just keep in mind the drop in velocity. We've seen that inversely related to a spike in expected wOBA on contact. Now, I never like to make any determinations until I get into the projection. So I always go to people smarter than me. I don't absolutely subscribe to projections, but I do like to know what they're saying, because I do know a certain piece of the market is going to react to them. So there you have the Steamer projections up above me. For the audio listeners, it's 24 games, only 142 innings, a 4.35 ERA, a 1.24 whip, and then that K in walk. The K's down to 25, the walk creeping up to 7, and they have him at 1.5 home runs per 9. So, and not to say I feel like maybe we reverse engineered these projections a bit, but I think we reverse engineered these projections a bit. So, I didn't come in with any priors. I found I have not been drafting Ryan because I do like other pitchers going around him, namely Jordan Montgomery, Tristan McKenzie, that we saw a bit more from in the pros. And, Montgomery, again, I'm not going to get into the details. Please make sure you check out that video. He's a very deep arsenal. He's very effective against lefties and righties. The team context is very good. And, again, we saw a bit more from him. So I think it's easier to level out our expectations for a player like Montgomery opposed to Ryan. So looking at all of the work that I laid out for you, keeping all these problems in mind, right? The low velocity, the high amount of vertical break, the extreme amount of fly balls, a lot of what we've seen really does explain these steamer projections. So let's get into the conclusion here. Is me probably a bit worried about Joe Ryan now at this point, and probably not going to be drafting him much, if at all. He would absolutely have to draft below, he would have to fall in drafts, I should say, below all of the other players that I'm digging in front of him, namely the Jordan Montgomery, namely Tristan McKenzie, maybe even somebody like John Means, who I think will probably end up on a list for one of these pitcher breakdowns. I know a lot of people are asking about Means. He started out so great, got hurt, finished so terribly, so it kind of becomes hard, to level out again those expectations. So that should do it from us here at Corked Stats and the Mayo Media Network. So I hope you enjoyed the show, but even more so, I hope you see where I'm going with this, right? I don't have an opinion that I'm looking to force on people. I do my work, and then I open the book and show it to you, so you can feel free, please, get up in the comments, let Patty, Mayo, and the boys know how good of a job I'm doing or how bad of a job I'm doing. We are an open book here. I wear all my L's on my sleeve. The name of the game, outside of nuance and context, is transparency with a capital T. So let us know how we're doing. Rate, review, subscribe. Check out the podcast. I'm doing all types of good stuff. I'm a straight up fount of baseball information right now. And now with football out of the way, it is the sole focus. It's a lot of fun. We're learning a lot, but this stuff is going to translate into making money, and that is really important when you're trying to keep the lights on and the kids fed. Thanks so much for spending your time with us and picking up what I'm putting down. Please be wary of Joe Ryan in those drafts, and if people ask you why, you can point them to this video. Hit the like button, subscribe, check out the playlist, check out the Corked Stats pod, and I think that'll do it. I'll check you all on the flip side. Remember, when you work this hard, it feels a lot less like luck, everyone. Peace.